The Shameless Picture Show is part of the Cinepunks Network. If you like The Shameless Picture Show and you want to hear other great shows like it, make sure you check out the Cinepunks Network. You can find them at www.cinepunks.com. That's CINEPUNX. There's other great shows such as Cinepunks. There's The Carnage Report, Cinema Smorgasbord, Fat Girl Hacks, Loud, Fast, Philly, Tomb of Ideas, and Twitch of the Death Nerve, and so much more. If you like punk rock and you like movies, make sure to go to www.cinepunks.com. And let's not forget the sponsors for the Cinepunks Network. We have the Lehigh Valley Apparel Creations. They are the premier screen printer of the Lehigh Valley with service to the whole country, professional and personable in a way that only a DIY business can be. They also have ridiculously low prices for whatever your screen printing needs may be. You can visit them online at xlvacx.com. That's xlvacx.com. Lehigh Valley Apparel Creations. We also have the Essex Coffee Roasters. All their coffee is roasted to order. They have high quality beans, bunch of apparel, and tea available. They are bringing high quality coffee to the masses without the pretentiousness. Use the code CINEPUNKS for 10% off your first order. You can visit them at www.essexcoffeeroasters.com. That's ESSEX, coffeeroasters.com. Once again, use the code CINEPUNKS for 10% off your first order. One of our newer sponsors here at the Shameless Picture Show is Kino Lorber. With a library of over 4,000 titles, Kino Lorber Incorporated has been a leader in independent art house distribution for 35 years, including 30 films per year theatrically under its Kino Lorber, Kino Repertory, and Alive Mind Cinema banners, garnering 7 Academy Award nominations in 9 years. In addition, the company brings over 350 titles yearly to the home entertainment and educational markets through physical and digital media releases. With the expanding family of distributed labels, Kino Lorber handles releases in ancillary media for Zeitgeist Films, Milestone Films, Cohen Media Group, Greenwich Entertainment, Artsploitation, Palisades Tartan, Raro Video, and others, placing physical titles through all wholesale, retail, and direct-to-consumer channels, as well as direct digital distribution through over 40 OTT services, including all major TVOD and SVOD platforms. If you'd like more information on Kino Lorber and all the great titles they're putting out, be sure to check them out at www.kinolorber.com. That's KINOLORBER.com. KinoLorber.com.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, friend. I'm here to remind you today that after you finish listening to this episode, you can tune in to Optimism Vaccine, the only podcast on the internet dedicated to celebrating your guilty pleasures and digging through the grimy couch cushions of popular culture to pull out unheralded classics and forgotten trash every week from every era of cinema. From Hong Kong action to psychotronic Italian horror, salacious smut, whatever Whoopi Goldberg's up to, visit OptimismVaccine.com to learn more. You can check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts today.
Warning! This movie podcast actually discusses movies. Be aware that it may discuss any of the following elements: endings, surprise twists, unexpected cameos, and all manner of spoilers. If this doesn't appeal to you, why listen to a movie podcast? Without further ado, please enjoy our feature presentation, The Shameless Picture Show.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Shameless Picture Show. I am your host, Michael Viers, and joining me today is one of my very best friends. He's a film critic and journalist turned actor who has graced the stage during such productions as Our Town, A Raisin in the Sun, and Driving Miss Daisy. On top of that, he's also on the board of directors at the Waukesha Civic Theater. Today, we have Mack Bates. How you doing, Mack?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me, Michael. I appreciate it. Glad to be back.
I had to narrow down your credits a little bit because you've done so many, but I tried to hit some of the big ones that I knew you were very proud of.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, those 3 shows, I'm quite proud of all of them. They came at slightly different times, but yeah, each were, just great experiences all around. I got a chance to, you know, bring great stories to life, brilliant writing, great characters. Yeah, I certainly cannot complain on that front.
And how long have you been acting for now? Because I feel like when I had you on the first time for The Five Bloods, you had been acting a little bit, but it's definitely picked up since then.
Yeah, I've been acting now for the past 5.5 years. It's been almost 5.5 years. I started in March of 2019 in my first show where I was actually featured on stage, a production of Tracy Letts's August Osage County in West Bend, Wisconsin, which is a northern suburb of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's about 30 miles away. And yeah, I caught the acting bug working on that show, much to my surprise. I remember when I was first approached about it, I had done a couple of voiceover roles for shows for the man who directed August Osage County. I'd done voiceover work for a show called Funny Money in 2015, and then I had provided a couple of voices for two minor characters in a production of Spring Awakening, the musical, in 2018. And then he had told me that he was really intrigued and wanting me to finally get on stage versus just being heard on stage. And he told me his next show was going to be a production of August Osage County, which I was familiar with. I knew about it. I had known about the film adaptation. I had heard about the Broadway play sometime before that. And I told him, well, what could I possibly play in that? It's about a bunch of angry white people in Oklahoma. Like, what could I possibly what could I possibly play in it? And he said, there's a sheriff part. There's a sheriff part in it. And I read it. And I had an idea of what it was. And I read the script and I was completely blown away by it. I thought, oh, this is so much more than I had been jokingly referring to it as, this show about angry white people in Oklahoma. And it's a fantastic script. It's certainly one of his, if not his masterpiece, I certainly consider it his masterwork. And I got a chance to audition, and I landed the part. And during the audition rehearsal process, rather, I found myself more and more inclined to want to keep going. And then by the time we actually did the show in March of 2019 at the old Courthouse Museum in West Bend, I knew that it is something that I wanted to keep pursuing because people in the cast, particularly a good friend of mine, Betty Von Dutton, kept asking me, "Have you got have you got the bug yet? Have you got the bug yet? Have you got the bug yet?" Meaning, was I going to continue acting? And I would tell them like, "I don't know, we'll see. I don't know." And by the end of that run, it was a 7-show run over 2 weeks. I said, "Yeah, I definitely have it." That last day that they were asking me whether or not I had caught the bug, so I caught it, and I've been running with it ever since.
Well, it also seemed to hit you in a kind of a transitionary period in your life and career. Because when I met you and when we first hit it off, you were a journalist and film critic. So it was
Yeah.
a very different world, and the way that you would view, theater or films or performances was probably very different. Do you continue.
Oh no, I was just about to say, yeah. Go ahead.
I've always wondered this when someone is in your shoes, and I've always wondered this about, say, like someone like Peter Bogdanovich or any of the people who are in the French New Wave who kind of got their start on the film criticism or essayist side of the more critical analysis side of film and theater. I always wonder if when they jumped into being in that world, do you ever find yourself like thinking like, oh man, delivering a performance is much more difficult than I may have given it credit for? Have you ever gone back and re-looked at a performance that you once, not yourself, but like a performance in a movie or a play that you once kind of panned as being like, oh, that's a little less than, and have new eyes on it now that you are an actor? And I've just kind of been curious, like how it has been transitioning to the other side of it.
Oh, that's a really great question. Well, like you said, I started out as a critic. I was a freelance critic for the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel for 16 years, and I wrote for Milwaukee Magazine for their online film blog called Moviegoers for 7 years. And yeah, you definitely, when you're in the trenches as a writer and not necessarily as an actor, you're going to come at it from a more, you know, from that perspective. You're going to come at it as a writer who is observing what these actors are doing on the screen. Um, and having, since become a fairly prolific stage actor, much to my surprise, it was not something I saw coming. Um, yeah, I probably would approach criticism of performances in a different vein because I've actually crafted performances for different shows. I've done some voiceover work as well for animated programs and for just narration work for like different um, ads and documentaries. So yeah, I can't help but think that if I were to return to reviewing now, and I have kind of dabbled in that a little bit. I've been doing some stuff in recent years for Roger Ebert's website, rogerebert.com.
Yeah,
If I
you have.
Yeah, if I was to review film or TV even, I probably would. I would come at it from a perspective where somebody who's not only written about it but who's also performed. So that would definitely
Mhm.
inform how I would look at people's performances. And I do believe that the acting in these past 5.5 years has informed my the way I look at film and TV in a way that it was not informed, when I was doing before this all started. And I went to a performing arts school and I majored in theater, but I really didn't do a much work outside of school. I really just did the theater work that was required for class. I didn't go for any of the school plays or musicals. I wasn't, auditioning for like first stage or the rep or anything like that. I was just doing my classwork. So it wasn't until much later that I uh, took acting a little much more seriously than I did when I was actually majoring in it. And it's been a really great outlet, particularly after film criticism dried up here, because the film criticism pretty much went south here in 2014. I wrote my last film review for the Journal Sentinel in August of 2014 for a film called of course, I can't think of the name of the movie. It eludes me at the moment, but hopefully it'll circle back. But again, film criticism officially went belly up here on a local level in November of that year. That's when the Journal Sentinel ran their last film review, and now you pretty much have to depend on bloggers and people just kind of doing it independently. And I know I think the Shepherd Express, they still do stuff. The Journal Sentinel occasionally has some coverage, but nothing by way of reviews. It's just basically, just general stuff. So, yeah, I was looking for a different creative outlet, and this kind of fell into my lap, and I'm glad it did, because I don't know if I would have necessarily gone in that direction if film criticism was still very much a thing. I think I would pretty much still be doing that.
Yeah, and it's I know for me it's a different extreme, but I know for myself when I went from just being a movie fan who, before I went to film school and really started working with actors and working with them on performances, I don't count the stuff I did before film school, any of the little shorts I'd make with my friends. It's a very different mindset. I had a very different perspective on a performance. And because it's always fascinating to watch, because sometimes I'll see a performance of that people are panning and saying it's a really bad performance. I was like, I don't know. I think some of these choices are intentional, and for me, that's the fun of being someone who's worked with actors and directed, is trying to think like, is this a choice? Or I think what's even more fascinating, and you get this a lot in smaller movies, where you're questioning, is this a bad performance, or is this because they don't know what they're doing? Or
Mm-hmm.
what I think is more interesting is when you have someone who did go to acting school, who knows how to put together a performance, they just don't have the skill to make it what it should be, but you can see the gears turning in their head as they try to deliver a performance. I don't know, I just have a different way of viewing these things now.
And the really interesting thing about something you just said was film is a different medium than theater. theater is
Oh,
an actor's.
100%.
Like when
Yeah.
you get out on the stage, it's all you. Like all of the direction happens in rehearsal, but when that show opens, when it's in previews, just because there are companies here that do preview performances, and then they open up the next day typically. When preview hits, that's when it's all you. So whatever works, whatever doesn't work, it's on you at that point. The director has done everything they could possibly do. In
And
film, you can do things any number of times, and they have 8,000 different options, and it's really made in the editing room. So you could give
yeah,
a fantastic performance, but if the director or the editor or both in collaboration are choosing all of the off takes, all of the weird takes, all of the takes that you were like, oh well, they won't even be bothered using those. They'll do, instead of using takes 1, 2, and 3, they'll focus on 4, 5, and 6. If they want to focus on 1, 2, and 3, all those great things that you thought you did at 4, 5, and 6 are going to be on the editing room floor.
yeah. Actually, it reminds me of a quote that Samuel L. Jackson said. There was an interview he did where someone asked him, "It's like, what do you think your best film performance is?" And he said, "There isn't such thing as a film performance." He's like, "The best performance I've ever done, no one's ever seen because it's sitting in the editing room somewhere. They take bits and pieces of many good or sometimes not good performances and put them together, and they make a Frankenstein performance." I'm misquoting him a little bit, but that's essentially what he's saying.
So when do you take your measure of the performance, of the work you did? Is it just what you do on that stage, that sound stage, or that set? Is that...
I take the measure of what I did when the director says cut, and I look at the other actors, and we can look at each other and go, or that feeling came, that magical thing happened, and you're like, wow, we did that. Because you can't go to the movie and see it, because the movie's a director's medium.
Mm-hmm.
I did a lot of great shit that's not in that movie. But because I work the way I work in a consistency of progression through what's going on in the movie, it cuts together well so that it looks like a whole performance. I might think it's 1 or 2 dimensional, that there are some 3rd dimensional things that aren't there. But people watching it will be like, whoa, that shit was amazing. But I know that there's some shit that would have made you go like, ah! That's not in the fucking movie.
And I assume that works both ways.
You can't deal with it.
I assume that there's sometimes where you're not so happy and it works out better than you imagined, or no?
There are cinematic experiences that I've hated because the process was just so awful that people love. People always going, oh my God, I love that movie so much. And I go, yeah, thanks. Because if I think about what happened when I was doing it, then I want to go kill somebody.
But no, that's 100%. And that's one of the reasons I like going to live theater. Is it's fun to watch them kind of listen to the crowd, and especially if they've done it a couple of times and they can kind of get a feel for what works and what doesn't work. They can time their jokes in a different way, knowing how long the applause normally lasts. And so you went to a performing arts college to study acting?
Oh no, I went to performing arts high school.
Oh, sorry, performing arts high school. Since then, have you been learning just by doing, or have you gone and started done some acting classes? And do you have an acting style? Because I know there's you start talking to actors about their acting style. You have the Stanislavski, you have the Stella Adler, you have the Meisner. This is all really nerdy shit that most people aren't going to know about, but I do.
Yes, I'm glad that you do, because now I can actually talk about it a little. At the Milwaukee High School of the Arts, their theater program really focused on Stanislavski, but particularly through the lens of Stella Adler. So it was really Stella Adler's take on what Stanislavski's technique was.
Okay.
So I definitely studied that. And for me, I can't say I'm a walking, talking encyclopedia about it. Some of it has stuck, but a lot of it, hasn't. Like if you would have asked me to go from, down a list of all of the do's and don'ts, I would be like, I don't know. But I tend to be a pretty instinctual actor. I've found out over these past 5.5 years. When I look at a script, that's really kind of like the Bible, and that gives you a lot of what you're gonna need in order to do the character. Obviously, the lines, some of the stage direction does come in handy, and some of it you just completely ignore either at your own discretion or the director's discretion because you come up with something different that you can more readily do, or that just seems to fit better based on how what their vision for the show is. Um, so for me, it's really in the dialogue. It's in trying to figure out who the person is. I try to have an understanding of where they're coming from, regardless of whether or not they are a sympathetic character or a sympathetic character. Um,
If I remember correctly, the Stella Adler technique is that of creating a world for the character, and if
mhm.
I can remember correctly, I believe because I'm trying to, I think it might have been the Meisner technique was all about using your own internal emotions to create a performance, and Stella Adler's was about using kind of the opposite of that and truly creating it and trying to go outside of your realm of understanding of a character. Am I remembering correctly?
That sounds on par with what I do call. I know for me, when it comes to characters, I tend to use a couple of different things. I really don't have like a technique. I just kind of have like
Hmm.
just I just kind of have a grab bag of things that I rely on. Sometimes it's just the lines. I'm just getting the lines down and trying to make them make some sort of organic sense, I guess. So sometimes it's just that. Sometimes I'll come up with a backstory for characters. Like I did that with Hope on Driving Miss Daisy, a role I've played twice now. Had a whole backstory for him, based on stuff in the script and things that I thought would be, um, amendable to who he was in that story. With Doc Gibbs, who I played in Our Town, I also had something of a backstory. There was a lot of information on both characters in the script, but I came up with stuff that I just, kind of gleaned on to what was in the script. So, yeah, that definitely comes in handy. I also tend to come up with secrets for my characters that I don't
You
tell
said
anybody.
secrets.
Yeah, secrets. I don't tell
Secrets.
anybody. I don't tell the director. I don't tell my co-stars. I don't tell anybody. I just come up with a secret for a particular character, and I just hope that what I'm doing on stage is giving some sort of indication about what that might be. And yeah, that seems to have worked. I don't do that for every character, but for at least a good portion of them I have. Like with
So,
Hope. Yeah, go ahead.
no, I was going to ask you if you could divulge one of your secrets for when you played Hulk, because you played
Oh,
him, as you said, twice now.
well, yeah. Okay. The big secret for Hulk is, and it's actually the secret I came up with for him is directly linked to a famous scene from the play as well as from the film adaptation. They're in the cemetery, and Miss Daisy has asked Hulk to take a potted plant to the grave of a friend of hers, the grave of a friend of her husband, deceased husband, and Hulk is unable to because he is not able to read. He's
Yeah.
functionally illiterate, meaning he's capable of getting things accomplished, but he just cannot read. And she was like, "Well, you read the newspaper all the time," and he admits that no, I just actually try to find out what's happening by looking at the pictures, or what as he says in the script, I just try to go about what's happening by looking at the pictures. So for him, not being able to read is at least in my, the way I approached him being illiterate was, a great regret of his. And so in the script, we hear that he has a daughter, and he also has some grandchildren. And he is very adamant about his daughter and his grandchildren getting an education because he doesn't want them in the same boat that he's in. He's been very successful and able to provide for his family, but he's done it as a functioning illiterate man. And so when years later in his early 60s, when Miss Daisy encourages him to learn how to read, he takes her up on that opportunity. And up until that point, they've been kind of like going at each other, like tit for tat. She's trying to drive him away because she really doesn't want him, around or driving him or really doing anything for her. And in that moment, when she gifts him this book in order to encourage them to learn how to write and learn cursive, and just learn his letters and ABCs. He takes that as an olive branch, and after that, that's when the friendship, in my opinion, really began. So, for me, I just thought, well, his secret is he's very much about education because he didn't get one, so he wants all of his loved ones to get it in a way that he just was not able to. So that was my secret for him, and hopefully that came across the way I played that scene opposite my co-star in the graveyard when he reveals that he is not able to read.
No, I love that. I love that. I love
But
that we got a little peek inside of what all you're doing, because I feel like a lot of people who haven't spent much time with actors just assume that it's just showing up and saying the words in a believable way, and I'm sure there's some actors who do that, but I feel like the ones who really transcend the roles are able to, there's a lot going through your mind at one time, and you're trying to inhabit the space, inhabit the role. And I think at the same time, you're also trying to make believe that it's real for you as well.
yeah,
You're on a stage staring at an audience, and you had you have a chair and a lamp, and but you need to try to pretend and believe that you're standing in a living room and not in front of hundreds of people. And like you said, on a film set, you have while there's a camera and lights and everything, sometimes the sets are a little more ornate, and you can kind of suspend that disbelief a little bit more. But I think a big part of it is you need to tune out everything and believe what you're doing is true and real.
yeah. Yeah, and I actually have an interesting story about that. I'll keep it kind of brief.
Please do.
I've done two productions of Raisin in the Sun. Lorraine Hansberry's A Raisin in the Sun, both last year. Initially, I played Bobo in a production that happened down in Kenosha, which transferred to West Allis here in Wisconsin. And then with the revival, we did that in Waukesha, and I took over the role of Walter Lee Younger, which is the male lead in the show.
Mm-hmm.
But when I initially did the show, Bobo is a small feature part that he shows up towards the end of the second act, right before the third act really gets underway. And I like to call that character the bearer of bad news because he comes to the Younger household to break some pretty bad news to his friend Walter Lee. And Walter Lee's wife Ruth is there, along with his mother Lena and his sister Benita. And when Bobo, I remember when I was doing it in Kenosha, particularly at the Rhodey Center for the Arts in downtown Kenosha, there were nights that I would go out on that stage in the dread that I know somebody in that position would feel just washed over me. Like there were times I was so in that scene, I was literally sick to my stomach before I went out there. So I was having a physical reaction to what I was about to go out on that stage and do, and I used that to my advantage playing that part. And I experienced that for over half of the performances. Some of them I was fine, but the other half I was like, "Whoo!" I'm really feeling the dread that Bobo must have actually felt, like assuming he was a real person. It was almost like I was feeling what a real actual person was feeling at one point in time when he had to go tell his family, this devastating news. So yeah, yeah. So sometimes acting is odd in a really great way how you can get so invested and so entwined with the material that you actually have a physical or an emotional reaction to it. And that was definitely one of those times where the actor in the part kind of, blurred at certain points because I was like, wow, I didn't know it was going to impact me quite like this.
All right. Well, I appreciate you kind of letting me in a little bit about your methodology when it comes to acting. And I think that kind of leads us into a perfect place to talk about the movie we have planned for tonight. So on today's episode of the Shameless Picture Show, we are crossing a film off my shame list, and it's a movie that, as far as I'm aware of, Mac, you've been quite fond of for a while, and one that you've recommended to me a couple of times.
Yes.
We have Mike Nichols' Heartburn. Rachel is a Manhattan food writer at a wedding for a friend who meets political columnist Mark. They hit it off and end up weaving the wedding together for a night of drinking, passion, and spaghetti carbonara. They're smitten with each other, and Mark would like to take this relationship to the next level, but Rachel doesn't believe in marriage. That's just a small detail, as they're both smitten with each other. They marry, they have a kid, and they're happy. That is, until Rachel finds out about Mark's infidelity right before their second kid is about to be born. So, Heartburn, while directed by Mike Nichols, is not only a product of him, but also a product of their screenwriter, Nora Ephron, who wrote a book with the same title called Heartburn that is about her very famous second marriage with political columnist Carl Bernstein and his affair with Margaret Jay, the daughter of former Prime Minister James Callahan. Well, so while the film, I didn't write the second part of this, so I'm just going off of memory here. While the film had a relatively mixed bag of reviews from film critics, it did end up getting some love from film critics such as Leonard Maltin, who is probably my favorite film critic of all time, and Variety. Roger Ebert and Pauline Kael were a little bit more middle of the road on the film, but ultimately it did pretty well in the box office. It was actually number 2 in the box office after Aliens.
Oh, wow.
And Meryl Streep was named Best Actress at the Valladolid International Film Festival, which is in Spain. So the film has a phenomenal cast. It stars, obviously, Jack Nicholson and Meryl Streep, but then it's also got Stockard Channing, Jeff Daniels, Milos Forman, which I didn't even realize he did much acting.
Yeah.
Richard Mazer, who I think makes every movie he's in better, and even has a really young Kevin Spacey in, I believe, his first role. Movie also features phenomenal naturalistic cinematography by Nestor Almenendros, and music by Mike Nichols' wife, Carly Simon. So written by Nora Ephron, from a book also written by Nora Ephron, from 1986, directed by Mike Nichols. This is Heartburn.
It's the hat. Don't look in an obvious way, okay?
It's Mark Foreman.
Is he single?
He's famous for it.
I don't believe in marriage.
Neither do I.
The minute you get married, you start to drive each other crazy.
For 20 years, he's been terrible to women.
You're the only person he's ever treated decently.
It's a marriage. We're having a baby.
Yeah.
Oh, baby. It's just that there's no door to the kitchen.
The back door.
Oh, the back door. We know it's a kitchen. But you can't get inside the house from in the kitchen!
It's not funny.
Yes, it is.
I never expected to love it so much.
Is you is or is you ain't my baby. Just keep breathing, you can do it.
I don't want to do it, honey. Can't we get somebody else to do it?
Thelma Rice is having an affair.
No. With whom?
No.
I don't know. I found out who Thelma Rice is having the affair with.
How to tell if your husband's cheating? What's the first clue?
It may be a slip of paper you found in his wallet.
I know about you and Thelma Rice.
You want monogamy? Marry a swan. Betty told her that you said she had herpes.
You tell Thelma she comes over here one more time, I'll tell Betty she has the clap.
You'll just go back to him and you'll hold
I
it
am
against
never
her.
going back with him, never.
But I'll try, by God, I'll try. Your mother would have loved him.
Yeah, but she was crazy.
I know nothing stays the same, but if you're willing to play the game, it's coming around again.
I didn't know Carly Simon and Mike Nichols were married? They were? Because I know he's been married married to Diane Sawyer.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I got my facts wrong. Hold on.
Yeah, he married Diane Sawyer when he was filming Working Girl. I know that. And that was 1988.
Oh, no. I was wrong. I thought they were together. I think I was wrong. Never mind. I don't know where I got that. I don't know where I got that factoid from, because that factoid was wrong.
Now, she was married. I know for a fact Carly Simon was married to James Taylor because they have a son together. I know that for a fact. That was years ago, back in the 70s, 60s or 70s. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know where I got that factoid from. I remember I was reading about this film and I must have misread something. And so, yeah, instead of cutting that out and fixing my mistake, I'm just going to admit, sometimes people are wrong. And Carly Simon and Mike Nichols were not together, but she did do the music for this movie.
Yep.
So
as well as 2 years later. So
I'm sorry?
She also did the music for Working Girl 2 years later and won the Oscar for Best Original Song for Let the River Run from that film. But she also did the film's music. So, yeah, they had a pretty nice collaboration going on there for a few years. I think she did music for Postcards from the Edge, too, which was in 1990. So, if that's the case, she did movie music film for 3 films in a row.
Yeah, she's had a prolific career.
Yeah.
So, Mark, this movie first came on my radar, I want to say, it was about 2020, and I only know this because it was around the time that I got COVID. So it was about 2020. Well, no, it's about 2021 because I got it the February after COVID hit. So it was about 2021. I was home, wasn't feeling great, and I just wanted some feel good stuff. So I went on a run of Nora Ephron films and was just watching as much as her stuff as I could find. So around that time, I had watched. I think I watched When Harry Met Sally. I watched Sleepless in Seattle. I watched You Got Mail. I think I watched Julie and Julia then, and you had mentioned Heartburn.
Oh,
and
okay.
Yeah, because I had posted about just how much I really like Nora Ephron's writing because I think she's extremely talented. And you had asked, "Have you seen Heartburn?" And I was like, "Hell, I haven't even heard of Heartburn."
Oh, I remember this. Yes, yeah. You
and
also, yeah.
Yeah, and then my mom also jumped on saying how much she liked Heartburn. So I was like, well, I need to make this happen. And then honestly, how this episode came to be, I was walking around Half Price Books. I saw a copy of Heartburn. I was like, well, this is the sign. I'm going to just buy this and see if Mac wants to come on. Because I bought that and Cooley High on the same day. And I was like, I feel like Mac's a fan of both of these movies.
I am.
So I was planning a Mack Bates double feature, essentially.
Okay. Hey, I'm down. I'm game. Why not?
Yeah. So tell me about your experience of Heartburn. When did you first see it? And out of all of her films, because she's written so many films, and Mike Nichols has directed a lot of films. Yeah. What about this one sticks out to you?
Okay, with Heartburn, I was actually around when this movie came out in 1986, but I was 9 years old. So it was definitely something that was, out of my realm of comprehension at that time. And even though I was watching films, I was watching more age-appropriate fare because this is an R-rated film, and a lot of it I probably would not have gotten at 9 years old, to say the least. So I hadn't heard about it when it came out initially. I didn't hear about it really until maybe, I want to say, within the last decade. It was just one of those movies that kind of just completely was off of my radar. And I was going through, I believe it was Meryl Streep's filmography on IMDb, and I happened across Heartburn. I said, oh, I wonder what this is about. And I clicked on it, and I saw just the virtual who's who of who was involved in this film. Mike Nichols, who I have always, been a big fan of his work. Nora Ephron, whose work I have admired for years. Meryl, Jack, Stalker Channing, Jeff Daniels, Mercedes Rule, Joanna Gleason, Kevin Spacey, before we found out what we found out about him, Maureen Stapleton, it was just like an embarrassment.
Catherine O'Hara,
yes, Catherine O'Hara from Schitt's Creek and SCTV and Home Alone, of course. Milos Forman, who I was a fan of his work, Amadeus, The People versus Larry Flint, and on and on and on. So just the level of talent involved, I had to seek it out. And funny enough, shortly after I saw that posting on IMDb, when I went on to check on what the film was all about, it just so happened to air, I think on Cinemax or like Showtime Women, one of those two. And I finally got a chance to see it, and I was like, "Wow, how did I not see this until now?" It was one of those things where like, I could have seen this years ago if I had only known. I had known about IMDb for years, but I didn't know about that film. It was just not something because I think I was doing some research on Meryl for something I was writing, and I just wanted to kind of like go through her list of credits to see, was there anything that stood out or something I wasn't quite familiar with, and this was that film. And so when I found out that her and Jack Nicholson had worked together a year before they did this movie in 1987 called Ironweed, which they were both Oscar nominated for, I thought, well, yeah, I got to check this film out. And thankfully, I was able to check it out fairly shortly thereafter because I was going to try to seek it out, on one of the streaming services or like to see if it was on Turner Classic Movies or something like that. And thankfully, it just happened to air, maybe within 2 weeks or so of my discovering what it was all about. And I'm thrilled I got a chance to see it because it's one of those films about marriage and told in a comedic way that I just think it was pretty inventive for its time. I had never really seen anything quite like it before, and with those two leading it up, Jack Nicholson and Meryl Streep, I thought, well, there's got to be something to it. There's got to be something meaty, something good about this, and I was proven right.
Yeah, it's interesting too. So I've not seen the first movie. So I should also state I really liked this movie as well. It reminded me of some of the. So this is an interesting movie because it's definitely has its sides to it where you can see that Nora Ephron's anger definitely comes through this movie, but it doesn't spend the entire runtime just being angry. It shows multitudes and layers to their relationship. It actually reminded me of watching more recently Marriage Story, where that movie had just as many highs as it did lows of what these characters are going through. So while I have not seen Nora Ephron's first movie, Silkwood, it is interesting that after Silkwood, I do need to see that one. You said,
yeah, you definitely have to see that one. That's a very powerful film. I don't want to give too much away about it, but yeah, if you get a chance to see that anytime soon, I would highly recommend it. You're going to be
Meryl Streep, Cher, Kurt Russell. What's not to love? That's just a great cast.
Yeah.
Also, that one was too.
Yep, and Nora Ephron also, like you mentioned, and she helped co-write the screenplay. Was Oscar nominated for it.
Mm-hmm. So I've not got a chance to see that one yet, but it's interesting that right after Heartburn, she goes into writing When Harry Met Sally, and what I think a lot of people sometimes forget about Nora Ephron is that she was a very prolific writer and journalist before she got into making films. But it's interesting to me that she kind of went on to have a career making, I don't like this term, but quote unquote chick flicks. She was making the romantic comedies, but she was making these films that had such substance to them. Like I almost feel like the way she tackles her scripts feels very much like a journalist. Her characters are dissecting relationships. They're talking about them in a very candid way, but then viewing multiple sides of a situation. This has nothing to do with Heartburn, but like When Harry Met Sally, Harry and Sally spend most of that movie talking about the difference between men and women, the good and the bad. And like I said, it's approached on almost a journalistic way. Heartburn, had I not known what that movie was about, just based on the description, I wouldn't have gotten the idea that anything that Jack Nicholson's character would be having an affair. because he's not presented in a negative light at the beginning of the film. Because I feel like a lesser writer would be leaving clues throughout the movie and be like, don't trust this guy. Don't trust this guy. But Jack Nicholson in this movie is so effortlessly charming until he's not. And then even after that, he still manages to be charming. And I feel like that with great intention, probably the way that he was written, because, you know, the two characters end up getting back together. And I think she wanted to show that just how charming this snake of a man could be.
Yeah, and the really interesting thing about this particular film is both of them come into the marriage with major anxiety and kind of, you know, should we really be doing this? His is a little more covert. Hers is a little more, you know, blatant. So it's almost like they flip it. You would expect him to be the one who's more openly questioning it, whereas it's actually her who is very much open questioning it. Him
It
is
subverts
like,
that.
yeah, he's kind of like, yeah, we really should, even though in the back of his own mind he was like, should we? You know, like maybe she's got a point, but I don't want to be the bad guy, so I'm gonna just let her take the lead on this, and I'll follow what she's doing, what she wants to do. So I thought that was a very interesting dynamic where they literally flip it and have him be the more kind of casual, laid back one, and her be the more like, yeah, let me question this just to see if I really want to go down this again. And there's a funny sequence in the film where they're actually at the wedding and she's holding everything up, just kind of like vegging out in her bedroom, going back and forth as to whether or not she wants to get up and go get married. And I just thought it was pretty funny how that whole sequence plays out, because it was almost like the opposite of Runaway Bride, where in that film she's literally running away. In this particular film in Heartburn, she isn't so much running; she's just sitting there contemplating, like, do I really want to go through with this?
Yeah,
I found it fascinating.
Rachel, everybody's waiting. I don't know what to tell them.
I don't know, Eleanor. I don't know. Mom and Dad were a disaster. Charlie and I were a disaster. Everybody, except for you two. How long have you and Harvey been married?
12 years.
And it's a wonderful marriage, isn't it?
It's okay.
The secret is wax paper. If you butter the wax paper on both sides, then add the chicken, just as you would in a normal casserole.
Filleted, of course.
Filleted, of course, and not a trace of skin.
Oh, no, never.
50% of all marriages end in divorce.
Not second marriages.
40% of all second marriages end in divorce.
No, and I was gonna mention that scene. Like, one of my favorite parts about that scene was, like you said, I love the way that it shows the passage of time. You know, near the end of it, you have like the flower girl laying over someone's arms, practically like passed out. But I also love that, like, at one point, you know, she's talking to anyone who will listen. And it's just like the way that they cut that montage. And then I love it at one point, he's in there with her, spooning her, just being like, we can do whatever you want. Like, it's like, it's gotten to the point that even he's in there, not necessarily being like, we have to do this, more so like just trying to comfort her so she can figure out what she wants to do. But then, you know, we're given these moments of, even when we are given moments to making us wonder what's happening, like if we should trust him. Like, there's a moment where Richard Mazur's character and Stockard Channing's character essentially go up to her and are like, he has treated every woman he's ever been with like shit, except for you.
Except for you. Like, you're the only one. You're the only woman he's ever brought to our house for dinner who he didn't abandon. Like, he actually stayed the entire evening and made sure you got back home safely. Everybody else is like, you know, just varying degrees of like, can we go now? And when they didn't want to go, he'd leave. And they were kind of left to their own devices of how they were going to get home.
Yeah, and like what I also found myself liking about this is, like, this is my favorite type of comedy or romantic comedy, or even drama, where it's not just dour and depressing the entire time. It allows the characters to be funny. It allows situations to be funny without necessarily making fun of them.
Yeah.
Where if someone would ask me, is this a comedy or a drama? I'd be just, yes, it is both things. And it reminded me of two films that Alan Alda made. It reminded me of Same Time Next Year and the Four Seasons, where it's these movies that allows these moments to be funny, even when it's not necessarily a funny movie.
Yeah. And they're actually doing a remake of the Four Seasons as I believe, a limited series. And I know Coleman Domingo is a big cast in it. So that's going to be interesting to see what they do with that. Yeah, because I don't know
love Four Seasons, so I will definitely be checking that out.
Oh yeah, I loved it too. I watched the film years ago. That had to be late '80s, early '90s. So again, I was
like I said,
young, but
Same Time Next Year.
Enjoyed it.
Or have you seen Same Time Next Year?
No, I've heard of it. I have never seen it. I've never seen that film.
It is a romantic comedy, and I use that loosely, starring Alan Alda and Ellen Bernstein, where they are two people who are married to someone else who meet once a year through, I think, like almost a decade when they have an affair, like every weekend. Like not every weekend, but like once a year for a weekend, they have an affair with each other and kind of pause their real lives, spend time with each other, and then go back to their real lives. And it's they are adulterers, but it's a comedy. It's a romantic comedy about them.
And I know Ellen Burstyn, she first did that on Broadway back in the mid '70s. She won a Tony for it, and that's the reason she wasn't at the Oscars the year she won for Alice Doesn't Live Here anymore. She was doing the show and couldn't get away from the show in order to attend the ceremony. So that's why Martin Scorsese did the Oscar on her behalf. But that's one of the few movies that she made during that period, during the '70s, that I have not seen yet. I've been meaning to see it. I have not seen it, so I definitely have to seek that out too, so I could finally find out what all the fuss is about.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think. Had Jack Nicholson and Meryl Streep done anything together after up to this point or after this point? Because I don't think they had.
Before, I'm fairly sure they didn't, but after, the next year in 1987, they reunited to do a movie called Ironweed that was set back.
Oh, you just mentioned that. You're right.
Yep, they did Ironweed together, and that was set during the Depression. And I believe that's the only other thing that they've done, at least that I can think of right offhand. And they were both Oscar nominated for that, for Ironweed. Him for Best Actor, her for Best Actress. But yeah, if they had done anything else, I'm not sure.
Because Jack Nicholson himself has a really interesting career. I had heard one. So Jack Nicholson started in the Roger Corman School of doing a little bit of everything, and while he went on to become I think one day when he passes away, he is going to go down as probably the greatest actor of our generation.
I
feel like if it's not him, he's going to be in the contention for it. But I remember reading one time that Jack Nicholson, he originally wanted to be a writer.
Oh, okay.
And writing is kind of what really fascinated him. And but he started getting jobs as an actor, and he kind of ran with that. And I feel like that's also part of the reason why when he eventually got a chance to write and direct his own projects, he jumped on it, because he got to do these interesting roles or create these interesting films that he might not have had the opportunity to do without them. But it's interesting that you have two powerhouses like Meryl Streep and Jack Nicholson who can essentially outact anyone in a cast, probably without even trying. They are two actors who could show up and just know their lines and probably still give a better performance than some people. And the way they play off each other is just so wonderful to watch. I read somewhere that I think it might have been on Letterboxd, someone complained that they had no chemistry together, and I can't see what movie they were watching.
Yeah, I have no idea what they were watching because there's no way you can look at this film and be like, oh yeah, these two have no chemistry. Like, no, it's chemistry for days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I think of that scene. It's probably my favorite scene in the movie when right after they move into their house in Washington D.C. and it's the movie essentially becomes the money trap for a couple scenes. And they are sitting. It was right after she announces the fact that she's going to have a baby, and they're sitting there eating pizza, trying to think of all the different songs they can think of that have the word baby in it.
Mm-hmm.
And Jack Nicholson dancing around the living room with his slice of pizza. And I'm reminded of a quote that I think Steven Spielberg said while about working with Robin Williams, where whenever you had Robin Williams on a film, you had to pretty much keep your camera on a swivel at all times because you had no idea where he was going to move. And that's just how Jack Nicholson feels in these scenes, where it just feels like he is using every little every little bit of the scenery of the set. And that scene itself is incredible. And just watching the way that Meryl Streep watches him, you can just see that chemistry.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then the absolute best payoff. The absolute best payoff is the next morning when he bursts into the fucking bedroom and just starts singing over her. It's just the 1-2 punch of those two scenes is probably my favorite scene in the movie.
And with the way she uses the pillow and the comforter to try to get any sort of like barrier between her and him in that scene, it's hysterical because that is the exact reaction that most people who are just waking up at first thing in the morning because their significant other is acting a complete total moron would more than likely have. They're like, please shut the fuck up. I'm trying to sleep.
Yes.
So yeah, and Nicholson, he has actually credited being a really good reader with his advancement as an actor. He said I would go to auditions and they would want me to read opposite different people during casting sessions, and he would find himself getting part just because he was a really great reader. He knew how to get a hold of a script and read it and not be stumbling all over the place like some fellow actors were doing. And they were like, you know what? Instead of this guy, let's give this Nicholson kid a shot. So it's interesting that he wanted to be around.
Yeah. Apparently, I did some reading leading up to this that Jack Nicholson's acting style, going back to that, was he uses a variation of the method acting style. But what he finds very useful is he finds it useful that he uses relaxation techniques to remove any tension from his body. So that way, when he is making a performance, he can get into the physical body and the emotional body, and he can get everything to neutral. And that way he's not getting hung up too much on his choices. He's not overthinking things, and he very much just lives in the moment. And I was not able to necessarily find information too much about Meryl Streep's style.
Okay. I do have something to add about that. With Nicholson, I know when he was working on Terms of Endearment with Shirley MacLaine, she went on record as saying that there would be times that they would do multiple takes of one scene, and he would do it differently every single time. And other actors like Michael, who he worked with on Batman, have also mentioned that he never does the same thing twice. He always changes it up from scene to scene to scene to scene. And there have been other actors too, but Keaton and McClain, those are the two that I have heard, share that in different interviews. And with Meryl, that's where I got my one of my techniques from, the creation of secrets for your character. That's a big thing that she does, where she creates secrets for her character that she doesn't tell anybody.
Yeah, I love that. I've been thinking about that since you mentioned it, and I just feel like the next thing I direct, I want to give that. I want to give that little tidbit to my actors and just like, don't tell me, just do this for yourself. And because that's such a great way to do it.
That tends to inform some of your choices, I've noticed, because when I've come up with secrets for characters, like with Hope, that informed how I played the scene at the graveyard. That most definitely informed it, because he has a great deal of shame over the fact that he is not literate, and
Yeah.
it hasn't hindered him, but he also has a great deal of shame behind it, because he wishes he were able to read the newspaper, read traffic signs and so on and so forth. But he came up with a bag of tricks that managed to help them manage to get through.
No, that's such a great way to do it. And with Meryl Streep, I couldn't necessarily since she's been, well, so has Jack Nicholson, but Meryl Streep has been acting for so long. She's tried different styles. I know she tried method acting for a while and kind of swore off of it just because made people around her miserable.
It's definitely after Devil Wears Prada. She said that she was done with method, because it was just too demanding, and just it wasn't a way that she enjoyed working.
But what I've always found interesting about her acting style was that it's part of it's just because she just has a really expressive face. She has found a way to be subtle in a very big way. Like, she has found it's probably from her time on the stage, where she can give small glances but do them big enough that they read very well on the camera. And in polar opposite is Jack Nicholson. Jack Nicholson is not known for his subtleties. He can be, but he's not known for his subtleties. But there is a moment in this movie that was some of the best subtle acting that I think I've ever seen Jack Nicholson do. Okay. It was in the scene where they're having dinner with all their friends, and Catherine O'Hara doing her very broken Texas accent. Some scenes she had an accent, some scenes she didn't. But
it came and went. It came and went. It's true.
But when she was talking about, because the thing about Catherine O'Hara's character, she's essentially the exposition machine. She's in the scenes to spread the rumors that end up progressing the story further.
I think just dropping all those really great bon mots.
Yeah. So she has. Yeah, and she has the moment where she's like, "Oh, did you hear such and such?" I don't remember the name of the character, is having an affair, and they're all like, "Why would she be having an affair?" Like, but then as the camera's moving across the characters, it cuts to Jack Nicholson, and the look he gives, where it's not like disgust or anything, it's just very much like, I'm gonna keep my mouth shut during this because I don't want to say anything.
Yeah, because he didn't want to give himself away.
And we're going to try to move the conversation on past that. It was a very subtle thing that he does, but considering Jack Nicholson's character is the center of attention all the time in this movie, that when he kind of
recoils back a little.
Coils back and gets into his shell. It's so great. And then when the tables turn in this movie, and Meryl Streep is the loud, unsubtle, almost doing a Jack Nicholson style performance after she finds his receipts, and she bursts out of the bathroom, and he's just sitting there with no pants, being like, "I don't want to talk about this." Like, their acting styles almost reverse.
Yep, she gets big and loud and bombastic, and he gets very quiet and introverted and just very small, because this ruse that he has had going on for the entire movie that the audience was in on, but she and everybody else really wasn't. The only people who were really in on it were Stalker Channing and Richard Mazer, because they knew him for 20 years, so they had his number. They pretty much knew what was up more often than not. But she was fooled, the audience was not. And so when she finally finds out what the audience, has known for a good chunk of time, it's the result is pretty explosive, and it's definitely one of those scenes that if they ever do a career retrospective, and I know they have, I'm fairly sure that's probably one of the scenes in her career that has been a part of those retrospectives.
Oh, for sure. Um, so yeah, like it's Nora Ephron has this way of it's almost plotless films where there's a story. You know, the story in this is this marriage dissolving, or When Harry Met Sally. It's a story about two friends who realize that it's harder to be friends than they thought they were, or what have you. Especially the early chunk of her career, Nora Ephron's career. It's all there. It's just almost like a series of episodes strung together. There's just so many great moments throughout this film. Did you have any that you particularly like?
Oh yeah, the big reveal scene when she puts two and two together, and I absolutely love the setup to that scene where she goes to her hairdresser, and her hairdresser is having a very animated conversation with a fellow hairdresser at the salon about how duped she feels, finding out that her boyfriend of however many years has been having an affair, and was upset with her because she would no longer cut his hair after she found that he was cheating. And she's like, I can't believe I was so stupid to fall for all of this nonsense that he had been feeding me for like 2 or 3 years, however long they had been dating. And during the course of this conversation, Meryl is largely there, just sitting, observing. And then she has a series of light bulb moments. And you could tell it's written all over her face. Everything that this young woman, this hairdresser who is working on her hair, is telling this other young hairdresser, her coworker in this salon, is just resonating with her. And it's just one light bulb after another, after another, after another, until she was like, oh my God, I'm going through the exact same thing she's just going through. You know, and the way Meryl plays that, it's out of this world. It's so relatable. It's so subtle yet so powerful at the same time. And I think that scene coupled with the big explosion in the revelation scene where she comes out of the closet, out of the bathroom with all this steam behind her because she's pretending she's in there taking a shower while she's going through this drawer filled with receipts of, all sorts of things that he's been buying his side piece that people just probably assumed that he was buying for her. It's just like a 1-2 punch. It's one of those really, really great sequences that has a very promising start and an equally promising and well executed conclusion.
Yeah, it's like another one that is almost bookends the film is near the end, where when she's going to the jeweler, I think she's picking up like some jewelry that's been cleaned or being repaired or something like that.
Her being resized, I think.
Yeah, resized. And the jeweler, without thinking about it, just goes, well, what did you think of the necklace?
Yep.
She's like, what necklace? And the jeweler, who probably knows more than he lets on.
Yeah, he definitely knows more, but he's like, oh.
Realize in this moment is like, oh shit, I've said too much.
Exactly.
Or maybe he's like, oh, I spoiled a gift that she didn't know about.
No, my theory is he knew exactly what was up, and he knew he fucked up, and he was like, oh, let me backpedal as hard as I can to try to make this better.
That was my first instinct, but I thought of the gift one just now. He fucked up, and Meryl's face is just like, oh no, like I love the way she plays that scene. Oh no, I loved it. I forgot about it. Yada yada yada.
Yeah.
And he's trying to make it better by throwing in free stuff, but then you have the party scene, which is such a great scene because everyone there except for Milos Forman and Catherine O'Hara know what's going on. Even if Richard Mazer and Stockard Channing don't know 100%, they know what their friend is like.
Yeah.
So then when she like wallops him with that key lime pie, and they're just not even phased by it, but Catherine O'Hara is like, what just happened? Is such a great way to end a scene.
And then Stockard Channing is desperately trying not to just laugh her ass off in that scene, because she knows, like, oh, you totally had that coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I loved it. I loved it. So before we start wrapping up, Mac, is there anything else you wanted to talk about with Heartburn? I feel like we've talked quite a bit about performance. We've talked quite a bit about the Nora Ephron touch that this film has, and it's not to discredit all the work that we all know Mike Nichols put into this film, but this is still a very uniquely Nora Ephron film. But you can't talk about the performance in this movie without giving Mike Nichols his due, because the way that he works with actors, he always is able to bring the best out of people. You know, another great example would be the Birdcage. He brought so much out of those two lead performances.
Oh yeah.
Or The Graduate.
Yeah.
Like the way that the performance he's able to get out of people, considering to his the way he started in entertainment with, a comedy troupe with him and Elaine May. It's just interesting to see how interesting his career ended up being.
Yeah, Mike Nichols. He started off strong with movies like The Graduate and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, eliciting one of Elizabeth Taylor's and Richard Burton's best on-screen performances. I don't think you'll find too many people who disagree with that. And The Graduate, obviously, with Anne Bancroft, just doing some truly brilliant work as Mrs. Robinson, and of course Dustin Hoffman as the title character. He hit a snag sometime in the '70s where he made a couple of movies that just weren't all that well received, but then it seemed like he got his groove back, starting with Silkwood in 1983, and then continuing with Heartburn in '86, Working Girl in '88, Postcards from the Edge in 1990. I think. Oh,
he had Biloxi Blues in there as well.
Yeah. So it seems like the '80s he kind of got back on track and pretty much stayed there. Like there were some hits and misses along the way after that, but not quite like in the '70s where it seemed like he kind of hit the skids and people were kind of wondering whether or not he was going to be able to find his way again. But I know everybody who's worked with him has spoken very highly of him. Meryl, and him did a number of projects together, and she absolutely adored him. I know that Annette Bening also worked with him a few times, and she's had nothing but glowing things to say. Pretty much everybody you read across who's worked with him has said that he's one of the best directors they've ever worked with, because I think he really understood just how vitally important performance is. He wasn't really a director from a technical standpoint, but from an actor standpoint, you would be hard pressed to find somebody who had a better command of performance. It's certainly on the big screen. And he also did some really amazing work for television, like Wit, this amazing HBO film with Emma Thompson, and of course this amazing miniseries called Angels in America, which is based on the play of the same name. He also did that miniseries for HBO, and Meryl Streep and Al Pacino will both starred in that, along with a number of people who did the show on stage on Broadway, like Jeffrey Wright. He was in the film as well as the Broadway version.
He also he directed a version of one of my favorite plays, Barefoot in the Park.
Yes. Yeah, he did the play version, right? Or
yes,
was it
he did.
Okay.
He did the play version.
Yeah, and I know he think he won a Tony. He won like 8 Tonys for direction.
Yes, so he did.
That tells you just how revered he was, both on stage and on screen.
Yeah. So, he's. I feel like we couldn't end this episode without at least talking about him for a little bit.
Oh yeah. And, it just what his output, it's going to be hard to find another filmmaker with quite the same footprint.
Definitely. So before we wrap up, was there anything else you wanted to say about Heartburn?
Oh yeah, it's like I was mentioning a little earlier. It's a virtual who's who cast. There are a lot of notable people in this film. A lot of them were just getting their start, in film, and have certainly went on to do some pretty great things in the years since this movie. Like I mentioned, Catherine O'Hara, this was one of her first films. Mercedes Rule, before she won her Oscar for The Fisher King, she was in this movie. Joanna Gleason, who a lot of people are probably familiar with from her work in film and TV, she was in this film. Like I said, Kevin Spacey, this was likely his first film. And he would go on to do a lot of stuff, obviously, film wise. And it's just one of those hidden gems that I think a lot of people, when they do see it, they're pleasantly surprised that they never heard of it, much like us.
Yeah.
We found out about it, we saw the movie, and we're like, why didn't more people know about this film, and why aren't people talking about this more often? And I love the fact that it takes a very serious subject and uses comedy to try to make sense of it. Because these are two people who have been down this road before. They've been married before. It didn't work out for both of them for various reasons, and they try to have another go at it. And both of them are apprehensive about doing it, but they go through with it anyway. And as her father tells her at one point in the film, as Rachel's father, played by the great Stephen Hill, tells her at one point, if you want
this scene.
If you want monogamy, marry a swan. And I just thought, you know what? If you have to kind of sum it up in a nutshell, what they're trying to say in the film, that comes pretty close.
Yeah, I loved the dad in this, her dad in this movie. But Nora Ephron did go on to get married again. She actually eventually married Nicholas Pileggi, the screenwriter, the writer of the book and screenplay for Goodfellas. So that's kind of a funny, just little connection.
Oh yeah. And plus, we probably want to recognize the fact that this is very loosely based on Nora Ephron's marriage to Carl Bernstein of the famous duo Woodward and Bernstein, the men who wrote about Watergate and broke that case wide open. So just in case it wasn't, I'm fairly sure it was mentioned earlier, but I just want to make sure
it was. But I didn't mention the Watergate thing.
Oh, okay.
But that's yeah, and now I want to track down her book and just see and read that.
Heartburn? Yeah. It would be interesting to read the book after having seen the film. I've done that with a couple of movies where I've seen the movie and that prompted me to read the book. First time that ever happened was when I saw The Accidental Tourist, which was based on the Ann Tyler novel, and I loved that movie so much that I said, "Oh, I got to get that book." And so I ran off and got the book as soon as I possibly could, and I read it, and I loved the book too. So.
And then the last thing I will say before we wrap up is if you guys are like me and really like the work of Nora Ephron, I highly recommend you check out the HBO produced documentary, Everything is Copy, Nora Ephron, Scripted and Unscripted. It is pretty much about Nora Ephron's entire career from starting in the newspaper world to her film career, and it's a pretty great watch, especially if you don't know much about the woman. You'll leave with a whole new respect for her and what she was doing in the world of film.
Oh, when did that come out?
That came out in 2016.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I definitely have to watch that. And thankfully, I have HBO, so I can watch it on demand, which works for me.
Yep. All right, Mac. So let people know what you're working on next. If you got anything you could talk about.
Oh, yes. Next, I will be doing a staged reading of this play called Aura by Tommy Lee Johnston at Lake Country Playhouse in Heartland, Wisconsin. That'll be in late August 24th and 25th, or 25th and 26th. It's one of the two. I think it's the 24th and 25th. Tickets are on sale now, so if you're in the area and you're able to come out, that'd be great. I'll be playing a man named Mike who has the ability to not only see but to read people's auras. So it's definitely sci-fi. Yes, it's sci-fi in nature, and I've been pretty fortunate to be doing a bit of that recently. Last play I just did was called Rock Tales by, and there was some sci-fi elements to that too. And it hasn't really been a topic that I've been able to do a lot in, but I've been really, really happy that I've been getting more of an opportunity to do that as of late. And I just participated in RogerEbert.com's last Black Writers Week, their latest Black Writers Week last month. And I had an article about the 30th anniversary of the 1994 film Fresh, which is available on their website right now. So you definitely head over there and check that out, along with all of their other great content.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed that piece. So definitely check that stuff out. Everyone who's listening to the show knows what I'm up to. I'll be, continuing this show for pretty much until I decide I don't want to do it anymore, which I don't ever see happening. But you guys can follow me on all forms of social media at Michael Viers, Michael_Viers, or Shameless Picture Show. So thanks for listening, guys, and I'll see you next time. Shame time, shame place, Shameless Picture Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, Nora Ephron.
I loved working with Meryl Streep. First, I worked with her on Silkwood. Alice Arlen and I did a script for her. Meryl did Karen Silkwood and the Polish person and the Danish person, blah, blah, blah. But the true stretch, if I do say so, was playing me in Heartburn. I highly recommend having Meryl Streep play you. If your husband is cheating on you with a car hop, get Meryl to play you. You will feel much better. If you get rear-ended in a parking lot, have Meryl Streep play you. If the dingo eats your baby, call Meryl. She plays all of us better than we play ourselves, although it's a little depressing knowing that if you went to audition to play yourself, you would lose out to her. Some days, when I'm having a hard day, I call up Meryl, and she'll come and she'll step in for me. She's so good, people don't really notice. I call her at the end of the day and find out how I did, and inevitably, it's one of the best days I've ever had. You have no idea how much work goes into being as good as Meryl is, or for making it look as effortless as she makes it look, but I do. Because one night, while we were making Heartburn, I went into her trailer. She wasn't expecting me. She wasn't in costume, and she wasn't wearing makeup. She turned out to be a 63-year-old Asian woman named Chipak. So, Chipak, tonight we honor you.
The Shameless Picture Show is recorded in Milwaukee, Wisconsin and Easton, Maryland, and is hosted and produced by Nick Richards and Michael Viers. Today's episode was edited by Michael Viers. Our opening theme music was written especially for us by The Directionals, with narration by Zach McClain. The end credit music you're enjoying at the moment was generously provided by my friends in the band 10 Speed. The Shameless graphic design is masterfully done by Amanda Viers. An extra special thank you to all of our Patreon supporters and to our generous sponsors. We are on Spotify, Stitcher Radio, iTunes, Google Play, and Libsyn. You can find links for all these amazing people in the description below.